After a lifetime of being a very typical and average consumer and almost 2 decades in the restaurant business, with the last 6 of those co-owning 2 restaurants of her own, Joy Hughes started paying more attention to the environmental impact of plastics, disposables, and waste. Today, Joy and her husband Danny own the only sustainable, lifestyle-focused, zero-waste shop in Gainesville in North Central Florida. They're on a mission to increase awareness about your local, national, and even global plastic problems. And yes, we talk about plastic straws. Hear their story in today's episode 155 of the WHOA GNV podcast. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa! I am your host, Colin Austin, and today's episode is being brought to you by my friends over at Leonardo's Mill Hopper. When the work week gets away from you and you look up and you realize that you don't have time to cook dinner, you guys, pick up the phone and give our pizza family over at Leonardo's Mill Hopper a call. They have some awesome early week specials going on, like manicotti Monday, lasagna Tuesday, and chicken parm Wednesday. Plus, each order comes with a delicious order of garlic knots. Oh man, they're so good. Kyle purposefully makes videos with the sauce going on the garlic knots. It's just creamy and dude, it's so good. Anyway, you get all that for $10. You can't find a deal this great anywhere, you guys. So plus, Kyle and his team are always giving a pizza their heart by investing back into our community. See what I did there, James? Pizza your heart. Pizza their heart. Anyway, wouldn't it be nice to give a little something back to Leonardo's Mill Hopper by getting a delicious dinner from them tonight? Give them a call at 352-376-2001 or order online at leonardosmillhopper.com. Kyle Cohan, my friend, I love you. Thank you so much for your continued support. You are the best. And you guys, I just want to give everybody a little heads up because we're getting ready to enter the second half of the year. And I wanted to let you guys know that you could also become one of our incredible sponsors. If you own a small business and could benefit from reaching our regionalized audience of business owners, entrepreneurs, business professionals, and leaders, drop me an email at colin@whoagnv.com to hear about our great sponsorship packages. Not only would you be supporting our mission in building community, but will help get your message in front of the area's best, our amazing listeners. They're the best. It's a win-win-win, a win for you, a win for us, and a win for our awesome listeners that get the benefit of your great product or service. Again, my email is Colin, COLLIN, at WHOAGNV.com. Hit me up. I will send you our sponsorship packages and help us continue to invest and build Gainesville, baby. And if you want to see the entire list of sponsors that make this show possible and get connected to them, make sure you check out WHOAGNV.com/sponsors. Support all of these great organizations. They are the ones making this happen. And we're going to get into another fantastic episode right now. You guys, today on the show, we have Joy and Danny Hughes, founder of Life Unplastic, a business that can help you reduce waste, reuse and refill everyday goods, and rethink your consumption habits. You guys, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So you guys were brought to my attention by one of my former team members here, actually.
Right.
And shout out to Allison. And she was like, you have to get them on the show. They are so awesome. And I was like, absolutely, let's make that happen. So I'm so glad that we finally made that happen and that
definitely.
You guys are here. So I like to start with the story. I like to dive in and kind of hear how all of this came to be. People always ask me, where should I start? I'm like, wherever you would like.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me your story.
So Life Unplastic came about because we were working and operating Lucy's for 6 years, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys own and operate Lucy's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have the restaurant, and we actually had 2 Lucy's at the time. We shrunk it back down to 1, but I don't know. It kind of was a culmination of events from being in the bar business for so long, our mentors kind of taught us bottom line business. You know, we really were, that's kind of just how we operated for so long. And so that means kind of, as far as disposables are concerned, we would really get the cheapest thing because, you know, you need those thin margins to stretch as far as possible. And so that's how we operated for a long time. And 6 years into the business, my algorithms kind of on social media started to change, and I was approached by a nice woman from the Sea Turtle Conservancy, and she sent an email out that was basically like, hey, would you mind maybe switching to, not like changing out your straws, but just potentially switching to like an offer first policy? Would that be something that you're interested in? You know, sea turtles are affected by ocean plastics, and that was her spiel on the whole thing. And to be honest with you, I kind of ignored it at first. And I happened to be at East End Eatery one day and eating breakfast. And I used to like to go there and have breakfast and check my emails before I went into my office. And I noticed that their napkin caddy had a Sea Turtle Conservancy ad on it that was basically like, offer first, you know, like we have eco-friendly napkins, and we don't have straws. They didn't have them at all, which I thought was pretty cool. And I was like, oh yeah, that email from Stacy, I should follow back with her on that. So I talked to Danny about it, and at first, it, you know, as things happen in the restaurant business, change just kind of can be hard to come by. And so I had to work on him a little bit for it, but that's what we did first. We did an offer first policy, as opposed to when you train at restaurants, the mechanics start kicking in. That's what you train people for, is just put the straw in the drink and send it on out.
Drink goes on the bar, straw goes on the drink gets pushed.
Yeah. So we had to retrain our people a little bit, and we had to retrain our customers a little bit. And that kind of kicked it off, and it kind of snowballed from there. And all of a sudden I was really interested in lowering the waste all throughout the restaurant. And then also our waste at home. I just started really trying to figure it out. And I started realizing how kind of impossible it is in our current culture of consumerism, I guess, for, you know, that's I guess how I would refer to it. But when I was doing it on a personal basis, I was having to order things from online, and Publix wasn't really offering much to me, and you know, from anything that wasn't packaged in single-use plastics. It's just hard to find. And so I kept thinking, I really want to have a store where I can go in and refill. Lucky's was around at the time, and so I started shopping there. But for personal care goods like deodorant or hair products or, you know, lip gloss, all those kinds of things, they all come in plastic, you know? So
they all come in plastic, and then they're wrapped in plastic.
Right, yeah.
On top of
it's like double packaging, basically. Yeah. So I don't know. I just started realizing how difficult it was, and really wishing for a store. I discovered this store up in Brooklyn that we actually ended up going to once, and this woman, she was a blogger. I think her blog is Trashes for Tossers or something like that. And so I started following her, and that's what I mean when I talk about my algorithm started to change. Like, things started it just started to change. And my lifestyle was changing, and I really wanted to bring balance from the waste that we were contributing, I guess, at the restaurants. I wanted to find balance in my life as far as that was concerned. And so I thought, who better than me to create a retail store in Gainesville. I really felt good about being in a college town, and kind of the average age is a little bit younger. We're also a very nature-oriented town. So I knew that I would have the backing as from the community. I just knew it in my gut that I would. And so we went for it. And it was Danny that actually found the space. We're in Thornbrook, and he happened to be over there one day and kind of walked by, and there was a for lease sign in the window, and he was like, do you really want to do this? Because I think I found your space. And so we went and checked it out the next day. I think we signed the lease the next week, and that was in 2018. So it's been around for a couple of years now. It's gone through a couple of evolutions, and it's evolving all the time. We're always bringing in new products because with plastic, you see it everywhere. It just is so encompassing in our lives at this point that there is no shortage of alternatives, to be honest with you. It's just the shortage of like who's making them. Is there, an alternative that's maybe made regionally, hopefully locally? That's what I kind of try to lean towards. So, and that's how the store was created. It was just really me desiring exactly that and just kind of making it happen. I just jumped in feet first. Never really worked in retail before, but I was ready for the challenge,
Welcome to the world of retail.
I like it. I like it. And my client base is so thankful. All the time they come in and they're like, I'm so happy this is here, and please don't go anywhere. It's really cool. It's been a really
it's
fun
very
experience.
purpose-filled, right?
Yeah, it really is.
I'm sure that they see that in you and your mission in doing it, right?
Right.
So, it sounds like it was very organic.
It kind of was, yeah.
It was. I think that when and she's right. When she first came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do an offer first policy on straws," I'm pretty sure I literally rolled my eyes. I think one of the things.
Just to be straight with you, I would too.
Yeah.
I would have been the same.
This was also
It was
4 years ago when we started doing this, so this is well before the shop even opened. And we actually kicked off the program really close to Fest, if you're aware of Fest in town. And that's generally speaking, is a very incredibly socially conscious group. And so, and they read every sign. That's, so they walked in, they go, oh, cool. And so it just kind of was quick that our bar staff over that weekend, it's so busy, it was real quick that it happened.
I think we just took them off the bar.
Yeah, we just took them off the bar one day, but it was during that weekend, and so because of this, the social consciousness of that group, it made it almost that blow a little bit lighter. Like if we had done it, Florida State weekend, who knows how they'd have responded.
Right.
But because we did it then, and then the ball kind of rolled downhill, and it was like, well, what else can we find? And then it became stuff at home, and then it became and then it kind of became,
Then we started composting our
We started
food
composting.
waste and,
we started, paying attention to our recycling. And then you find out the story of recycling. And it's kind of, and the evolution of the shop, to me, from my point of view, because while we do own it together, this is very much her thing. And when we need stuff done, we just did a little remodel, and I helped her build some furniture. But for the most part, day to day, we talk about stuff all the time, but most of the decisions are hers. And so a lot of the evolution of the shop has come with our personal evolution as well. When we start to realize these things on our personal level, I'll see things phase out of the shop. And I'll see these new products phase in that have a better use. And that's when you started doing refills, and you have the bulk bar, and you can buy shampoo and you can buy soap. Because before it was all about it was all about recyclable waste and compostable waste, and now it's about no waste. And now it's about bring in your jar and fill up your shampoo.
Okay, so does that? But
I probably jumped ahead 5 steps there when I went that way, but
yeah. But so is there cost savings in that, or is this more of the mindset of I'm helping the environment?
So here's what how I like to answer that question, because I get that a lot. Because some of the products that we have are more expensive than the conventional product that you would find in a supermarket or a pharmacy, and that the deodorant. They are made with natural ingredients, so if that's important to you, being on your skin as opposed to maybe something that has aluminum in it or something that you don't know how to pronounce the word, then generally speaking, people will pay more for that because that is something that's important to them. But for people that maybe that's not important to them, or they really have to be budget conscious because of their situation, then what happened for me was we saved a ton of money because I kind of just was very steadfast about I'm no longer going to purchase that thing because it is packaged in single-use plastic. So is
that where you were at though?
What do you mean?
Is that? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following the story. I guess where did you become passionate for it? Because you're talking to Danny and he's like rolling his eyes, right? So
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of get the transitional phase of when did you discover yourself becoming passionate about this subject matter?
Well, I think with the straw thing specifically, and we all saw that same video. Everybody saw the video of the sea turtle getting the straw pulled out of its face. Everybody saw it. And so that's a really quick, easy, like, yep, I can acknowledge that.
That was definitely one of my moments.
Yeah.
I saw that, and there was a relationship to it because it was a stir straw, which are only found in bars and restaurants. You know, you wouldn't have those at home.
So for people who might not know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's the little one.
No, I'm just, I'm talking about like the video itself.
Oh, yeah.
There's a video of a turtle who's got one of these stir straws like up its nose, I believe.
Yeah,
way up its nose, and they're pulling it out with pliers, and it's obviously very painful for the animal.
And so for me, it was just kind of like, well, I kind of immediately had a kind of a personal attachment to that, because while it's not likely that that was one of my stir straws, I mean, there's nothing to say that one of my stir straws hasn't ended up in the belly of something at some point in time, you know. So that really bothered me, and the more I learned, it's been a learning process more than anything. It really has been such a journey of like like a second education almost, you know.
What really caused you to want to learn and to dive more into it?
I guess I just have an affinity for wildlife. You know, I care about wildlife, and I grew up, you know, with dogs and horses, and I've always had the empathy, you know, for advocating for those that cannot advocate for themselves, and so that was a pull for sure. As far as like turning it into a business, I mean, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I could see that there was a vacancy in the market, and so that those two things kind of connected for me, and I was off to the races. You know, I was ready to do it. And the more research I did, the more I was like, wow, all of these products, nobody knows about this stuff. You know, how can I, just like you were talking about, kind of lifting up Gainesville people, I thought that it would be so fun and also beneficial to lift up businesses and brands that are kind of doing it with an eco mindset. You know, they think about their product and you know how it's being used, obviously, but they also think about what happens after we're done with it and what happens with the discard process. I
think another part of your story that I don't think that you're necessarily aware of is that she is like a detail like monster. She needs as much information as possible, and so as the algorithm started to change, as she starts seeing more and more of this stuff, she starts searching for more and more stuff, and she starts finding more and more information. There was a time that it seemed like every day we would have a conversation about, I saw this today, I learned this today.
Yeah.
And so I think the passion from where I'm sitting did come very much from those who can't advocate for themselves, but it also came from this kind of deluge of information that she unloaded on herself, of the story of plastic, the story of recycling, the story of single-use products, the story of like how easily we discard so much stuff. And she just kind of consumed all of that information at such a high-speed rate that it kicked her.
I felt
drive.
so unbalanced, you know.
It was
like
constant.
I was saying with the restaurants, like
because restaurants are absolutely not eco-friendly. I mean, we have zero waste at our restaurants, about as much as it possibly can be, but there's still demons in there. But it's definitely
there's just a lot of trash.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially through COVID, like we had to switch back to disposables. We've just recently transitioned back to, you know, the reusables and washing dishes and stuff. But I mean, we were doing tons of to-go food, and even when we opened back up outside, you know, we were using disposables because I think that was, you know, something that people were concerned about for a really long time. And now I think that it's starting to transition back a little bit. You'll start to see, you know, maybe even bigger coffee shops, maybe even like Starbucks or whatever, allow you to bring your mug back in or whatever. But to circle back to your question too, and thinking about it as we're talking, like I really got kind of angry with the systems that are in place, and so that's a fire under me as well. Is like we need some big systemic change to try to alleviate some of the pressures that and some of the, you know, just the overall the waste that we produce as a society. And that doesn't seem like it's going to happen quickly. So this is a great way for a community. I think there should be a zero waste or a refill store in every town. You know, maybe as as many as there is, you know, a CVS or whatever. Like, they really should be more accessible. Because I think people respond really well to them. And once you get used to the process, you can really see how easy it is to make it happen, you know, and to kind of break free from these big brands that sell us these goods, but then don't have any kind of idea on how they're going to clean up their mess, you know. And I'm talking about like the big ones like Coca-Cola, Nestle. I'm calling you guys out because it really is that, you know, they take our resources, they make their products, they sell them to us, and then there's no follow-up afterwards.
And on top of that, they charge us with dealing with the problem.
Right.
You need to recycle. You need to take care of this, but when it's them that's actually creating.
Yeah, the responsibility of all of this trash is kind of left on our shoulders when we have recycling. You know, in the U.S., we have a great recycling program, as good as I think as it can be. Every city's a little bit different, and we still need to continue to recycle, but it's not going to fix, we can't recycle our way out of this issue as far as I'm concerned. And so it's important to have options, and that's kind of what I do. That's kind of what I provide. I curate these products and the inventory, and then you can come in, and it's kind of a one-stop shop. You can get all different kinds of life goods, you know, from dog treats that are not packaged in those little zippy bags to, you know, bamboo toothbrushes, what have you. So it's really exciting.
Cool.
I know it doesn't sound exciting, but
that's actually, I was like, you kind of naturally went there because I was going to say, describe your store to me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think for our listeners, it's like, okay, like, what does this mean?
Right.
What does a zero waste store mean? I mean, how do you pitch it in 30 seconds? You know?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So
like,
what I think sets us apart from any bulk retail or grocery store is that we're full service. So I kind of blended my hospitality background with the little bit that I know about retail. I just kind of went retail and then I came right back to the hospitality. So we do all of the filling. You don't have to worry about any of that yourself. We provide the jars for you. And we try to do everything in a very circular basis. So like if you have a pasta jar or pickle jar at your house and you want to bring it to us and put soap or whatever into it, or just donate it to us, we'll clean it out and then send it off with the next person. And people really like that. So I think what the store is just a way for you to be able to consume on an average basis, but without all of the waste. And we focus on reducing, refilling, and rethinking our consumption cycle, you know, our style.
So are the products that you're selling like just typical household type products?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have locally made soaps. We have, personal care, cleaning supplies, laundry supplies, some pet care, even some cosmetics. You know, the list varies and it kind of fluctuates as I learn what people respond to, and it's always growing until I run out of space. But then maybe, you know, there will be a bigger space somewhere down the line.
We've had many discussions about, do I drop this and bring this, or do I find a room for this? Because as the journey goes forward for her, so does the journey go forward for the shop. Because the shop has to, I mean, there's a physical confine of space, and her and Kat have gotten incredibly creative with how to use the space. It's very vertical. There's a lot of like shelf space on the wall, and the same as with when she was consuming all this information and like finding all these things out. It's the same with the products. All the time, there's new stuff on my account. Like, what is that? You know, and it's like, oh, that's we carry bulk olive oil now. Like, what? You know, or this really great balsamic vinegar that we have in the house now. It's like,
after Lucky's closed, and because they had some of those options, I shopped there a lot actually, and after they closed, and then I guess really when COVID hit, it was like, okay, we can, I think that the best way to sustain is to make it where people don't have to necessarily go into the grocery store. Now I don't have everything, and I don't have fresh produce and things like that, but pantry staples like olive oil or apple cider vinegar or beans or rice, you can find that stuff at my store now. And I think that really helped me find new customers through COVID, and now moving forward, people are really excited about it.
One of the biggest drivers through COVID was actually toilet paper. Because people were constantly looking for it, and then bleach was gone, and then disinfectants were gone.
Yeah.
And either me or her or a fan of the shop or the girl that works with her there, Kat, people will go on Gainesville Word of Mouth or one of those pages and go, anybody seen toilet paper? Life Unplastic's got it. Anybody seen bleach? We don't have that, but we have this. Anybody seen this? We don't have that, but we have this.
Yeah.
And so that was a big drive. It kind of got to be kind of humorous to me when I would see this going on, and all these people are going like, no toilet paper anywhere. And like, Life Unplastic's got it. Like, what? What are you talking about? Link to the store, and there they are, Yeah,
I never ran out.
Never ran out.
Had that secret supplier, I guess. No, I actually, we switched over to, the restaurant rolls, the really big unwrapped ones. People bought them, though. I had one lady get, a whole case of them, and then she picked them up. I'm like, I didn't realize these were so big. Lifetime supply. You are all set.
The general. Yeah. It doesn't fit on my wall.
If there's a need that people have and they ask me about it, I will do my level best to find them a low waste alternative. And I think I've done that, I would love to be in a bigger store one day, maybe. I don't know what's going to happen over the next few years.
Do you need a bigger store now? From a supply
if I
and demand
had
standpoint?
one, I have a laundry list of things that I could put in it for sure.
Wow.
I would just need some equipment.
How much space do you have right now?
It's
1,200 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the main floor space downstairs, and then we have some storage upstairs. And we just moved everything around, so I think we created a little bit of extra space. But yeah, there's definitely a waiting list for me, and we'll see how that kind of pans out.
So you said, just a little bit ago that you could see, or you see a need for a zero waste store in cities all over the place, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that part of your vision? Is that something that this could turn into, or is that beyond the scope of what you want to do personally?
So I think I would be, I don't know, I guess is really the short answer. I don't know if I can envision a bunch of Life Unplastics all over the place, but what I could see myself doing is maybe consulting people that want to start their own refill store or zero waste store. I think, and the reason why is because, and I've thought a lot about this, is because I really think it needs to be tailored to your community. I think that whoever owns it needs to kind of go out at initially and try to communicate with as many local makers as they can to try to keep the resources in their community and like I said, showcase those people that are making those things. So I really think it just needs to be tailored to your community and what they need and what they're requesting. So I would hate to kind of I don't know, try to twin up the shop over and over and over again or replicate it, I guess, exactly, because I don't think this iteration of Life Unplastic will work everywhere. I think it needs to be, if you live in a beach town, you might have more things for outdoors, or if you live somewhere that's more of a food desert, you might want to try to grow herbs in the window. I mean, who knows? The sky's kind of the limit as far as it's concerned. Like I was mentioning, there's really, because of the way plastic pervades into our everyday life, there's really no shortage of trying to find alternatives to that and trying to kind of problem solve as you go along. So I think it would be cool to consult people and try to get them going, and we've started 4 businesses now, so we have some experience like getting licensing done, all of that behind the scenes things that when you're dreaming up your your business plan, those aren't necessarily the things, the red tape that you have to go through is not something that you always consider. It certainly wasn't when we opened Lucy's, I feel like. So
it's not, and it's, I mean, you own a business in Gainesville. Not to say that Gainesville is unhelpful, but zoning is not necessarily going to be able to help you answer your questions about your application. So they can tell you when it's wrong. They can't necessarily tell you what's wrong. So I don't know if that's pertinent or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it is.
I think it's always pertinent.
Yeah, I think every city has those same kind of hoops that you have to jump through.
Yeah.
And so if there's somebody maybe holding your hands through that process a little bit, and also to say, I tried that and it did not work. I think that's worth something as well. So because I've tried a lot of things that have not worked, and I was able to do that because we still have the restaurant. It helped me be able to focus on the store without necessarily having to make a living from the store immediately, and I think I could help people bypass that the growing pains, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's been very organic to this point. So
Yeah.
maybe just let it keep going. Maybe it.
I mean, I
turns
have
in-
definitely gotten, before COVID, I was getting an email probably once or twice a month from someone in another state or in another town in Florida that was like, I really want to do a store like yours.
Cool.
Like, what can you tell me? And I always took the time to answer their questions because I did the same thing when I was opening. I did not create this concept. That it has existed, and it exists in small places. There's lots out in California. There's one in Brooklyn, like I was talking about before, and Denver. So I reached out to somebody in Tacoma and Washington, and was like, "How do you do the refills? How do you like, what's the process there?" And I mean, it's not hard. You just need some scales that can weigh things, and that's basically it. There really wasn't much to it. But I did need a little bit of help to kind of like figure some things out. And so now that I have that all figured out, I feel like it wouldn't be helpful to the whole movement for me to just kind of hold that knowledge inside, and not share it. So, it would be my pleasure to help people open up their own stores.
Okay. Well, it sounds like Lucy's in particular definitely had the impact on this new organization, right? It's like, that's where the attention. What are the other businesses that you guys own, and did they have similar impact?
We had a Lucy's in Hale Plantation for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, actually for 7 years. It was wildly successful. We sold it and just kind of walked away from it, which was the best for a lot of reasons.
Well, I had opened the store.
She had opened the store, and my personal mental health at that really just needed to. I needed to unload that. And then I also after that I opened a restaurant in High Springs called Headwaters. That is in very much the same way that Life Unplastic is ours, but it's very much Joy's. Headwaters is ours, but it's very much mine. Where Lucy's was us together, and we have two business partners there. So
you still have Headwaters?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. We made it through COVID.
It was such a baby. It was
like 4 months old.
Yeah.
When it happened. And I mean, Life Unplastic was barely over a year when COVID happened. And we hit the panic button pretty hard, and so, but we made it. And yeah, it's been
And in some ways, it was actually beneficial. You know, I figured out that was when I really made the transition back to. Initially, it was kind of a self-serve at Life Unplastic. It was very self-serve as far as the refills were concerned, and I did notice that was awkward for some people. Like they would bring in their big Dawn bottles, which is great. Bring in your Dawn bottles. You know, like reuse that stuff instead of throwing it out. But it didn't quite fit underneath our dispenser, so it's a little awkward. And then like the mess was kind of, you know, they would get laundry powder all over the place. So that was something else that we were dealing with, but that was fine, you know, whatever. And then when COVID hit, we were like, okay, people are not going to want to self-serve these. They're not going to want to necessarily like buy something that somebody else had a bunch of access to, because you just don't know, you know. I think people are a lot more germ aware these days, and so what we did was we made it like a full service. Like we do all of the refilling. You still shop around for like your deodorant and things like that, but we're doing all of the filling now, and I think people really like that. It makes the whole thing a lot more streamlined. You can bring in your containers, and it doesn't matter what they are. We are not particular at all. Like people bring in Tupperwares, people bring in big jars, little jars. It really doesn't matter. And so when we started refilling, you know, you can drop that off and go eat lunch, and when you get back, it's all ready for you. You know, so I really was able to kind of blend back into like this hospitality background that I've been doing for so long, and I really feel comfortable there. I really like being able to kind of give people an experience. You know, you don't really necessarily think about that when you go like grocery shopping or in a pharmacy or whatever. The experience probably isn't the first thing that pops into your mind, except for I really don't want to go grocery shopping. But I think that people come in and it's a little boutique-y, but they come in and they feel really comfortable, and then they leave just kind of, it's like a guilt-free shopping experience. If you're kind of tuned into what's happening with like plastic pollution and how a little out of control I think it is at this point, which isn't the fault of the consumer. I will say that. I'm not here to shame anyone about using things that are packaged in plastic. That is not my goal today. At all. And it's never my goal to try to make people feel bad about their regular consumption habits. It's just that once you kind of realize what's going on, plastic producers are not ever, you know, going to stop without some huge systemic changes, and that's not our fault. Like I didn't wake up and ask that Tide laundry detergent be in this giant, you know, plastic jug.
Right.
You know, I was fine with the powder in the box. You know what I mean? So
it seems like such an uphill battle. Does that discourage you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I get overwhelmed a lot with kind of the bigness of it all, because I'm just one little store in Gainesville. But collectively, I think we all really could make a big difference. And really what it is kind of like holding these bigger brands accountable and signaling to them when we buy these other things, even if we have to spend a little bit more. And what I was touching on before was I ended up saving a lot of money when we went plastic free. Is like kind of is a little misleading, because we are not plastic free. It's nearly impossible in the society that we live in today, but we've made big strides.
That's what I was going to add, was like, you can try all you want, it's going to be almost impossible.
Yeah. But that's because there's a lack of options. And so if we have better options and we're allowed, we have, the path towards it, and it might not be with these big brands that we've known our whole lives, then that signals to them that, change is kind of coming. And I think that they will, I think that eventually, hopefully, that's the idea, is that they'll respond. I've joked before that, I mean, my end goal is to actually be put out of business, because I'll never be able to compete with like super big box stores. But if they start doing what I'm doing, then I'm kind of, obsolete, and I'll figure out something else to do. You know what I mean?
Well, it sounds like, serial entrepreneurs, I'm sure it wouldn't be hard.
Yeah, I mean.
So, it sounds like you spend all your time like with Life Unplastic?
I don't.
No?
I split my time.
Oh, you split it.
Yeah. So I am at the store 4 days a week probably, and then 2, sometimes 3 days a week, I'm working on the restaurant stuff. So the way that we kind of split, I think it's worked so well is because we have such a different set of skills. You know, Danny's really great at managing, and he's a very hands-on and technical person. So we have showed like live music and everything at Lucy's. So he takes care of all of that, and you know, he knows how to cook really well. So he deals with all of the menu stuff. I have more the responsibilities of kind of the financials, and I do the design work for the menu. I mean, I get help with that too, but and I do the social media. So I'm doing the social media for all 3 businesses. Well, no, just Lucy's, and you do the social media for Headwaters mostly. Which is
very honestly very obvious that she doesn't do the social media for Headwaters. It's very clear when you see it. Like, this isn't the same person.
Yeah. And then I do most of the stuff for the store. I do have a really great store manager who I could not live without at this point. So she takes on a lot for me, and I really appreciate that. And we have good people at both of our restaurants, you know. So I'm not alone in it, but I do the books for all 3, and so that's kind of what I try to catch up on the days that I'm not there,
cool.
like physically in the store.
I could literally have a whole podcast on just running 3 businesses and like what, like how do you do it? You know, like we can definitely dive down that entire path. It's been another 3 hours here tonight.
For sure. Yeah.
And during COVID. And it's so encompassing because, I mean, everybody knows what everybody's been through. It's so encompassing. My job changed a lot during COVID, and hers really didn't. You know, it's like she's kind of been still doing the same thing. So I've kind of found myself listless a little bit. So when she asked me a month ago, hey, I need to build furniture. Like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I got to do something, you know?
No, we built a bar for the store.
We did, yeah.
Basically. Yeah, so you can walk up to the bar. We'll call it a counter.
Yeah.
Since it's not a bar. But yeah, you can walk up to the counter and order now. It was a little chopped up the way that we had it. The store was a little bit chopped up, so I wasn't loving the flow. So I went to Kat, I think in February or something. I was like, I have an idea, but I think you're going to hate me. And then yesterday we flipped everything around. She's like, I think this is the best idea you've ever had, you know. So we're both really digging it. It looks really great inside the store now.
And the joke about this has kind of been is that they did create this bulk. It's where all the bulk stuff is. It's a bulk bar now, and they were both formerly bartenders who left bartending because they didn't want to bartend anymore, and now they're back to being bartenders.
But we just pour soap now. Yeah.
It's a different kind of bar.
It's a little different. Yeah, it's a little different.
Well, let me transition a little bit, I guess I should say, like the plastic straw thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna like bring this back to the plastic because this was like a big.
It was a huge
deal.
thing. Yeah.
Like, and I kind of see both sides.
So you're on Gainesville word of mouth.
Well, I kind of see both sides. I mean, I think a lot of times it's like, you know, it's that your priorities might be different than somebody else's priorities. And I think that's where a lot of that usually comes into play is like, is this like really what we need to be spending our time on right this second? So I'm kind of, this is where I'm going with this. I'm kind of interested knowing that you guys are like the zero waste people of Gainesville. Like, you're my crew in this, right? So what do you say to all the people who missed their plastic straws and when all that was kind of going down? Very curious.
I would say that if you want to use a plastic straw, then you should have the right and the ability to go ahead and do that. That is your choice, 100%. What I also will say to that is that the zero waste movement has kind of been reduced down to plastic straws and plastic bags. That just happened to be my personal story. That was like my kind of just the journey that I was on was kind of kicked off with that, and that was the first thing that we felt like we were really able to do at the restaurants to kind of make that, kind of start switching off of styrofoam, and all of those things are really bad, but plastic straws have really become like this. It's such a joke, it really is. At the end of the day, it's a joke. But I don't think that the zero waste or environmentalist or activists for this topic ever really wanted it to be that way. But I will say it got us all talking, and it got us all thinking about it.
That's true.
I think that there's a positive in that. I have to laugh a little bit at how like some people are like, over my dead body will you take my plastic straw? Because
people who like pull out like a whole bunch of plastic straws out of their pockets.
Because to me it's like
I've seen some awesome memes through this as well.
I have watched
without it.
I have watched customers leave the restaurant, go to Publix, buy straws, come back and put it in their drink. and then like make a show about it. And it's just kind of,
like I said, it's not my job to shame anyone about the usage that they have now. But who I want to reach are the people that are listening to this and going, wait a second, wow, all of my stuff is actually packaged in plastic. I realize that that's probably not the best thing for the environment. How can I reduce that at home? What can I do to make this situation a little bit better?
Right.
And so my group, my people probably aren't so interested necessarily in the plastic straw issue. They're thinking beyond that and a little bit bigger than that. So.
It's so interesting. I just feel like it's something as simple as a straw that just like instantly makes everything very political. and then like you like have like legit conversations. You have like legit conversations. It's like what? Like no, like taking care of the environment is important.
Yeah.
Right. But also like, does plastic straws need to be prioritized above all of these other important governmental things that we need to be taking care of? And so that's where it usually like comes into play. I think is that it's like super hot. Like everybody would generally agree.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
the other interesting side of that question to me is that we have two different answers for that question.
Okay.
Because her answer is way more intelligent and thoughtful than mine is. And my answer is the plastic straw is an example of something that you didn't really need in the first place that you can do without. Because the reality is that And the first thing but immediately people love to jump to, like, my father has epilepsy, then your father should have a plastic straw. And I never said take it away from him. But you as a completely able-bodied adult, you don't need a straw to drink your drink. You don't put a straw in your cup at home. And the whole trope about your glasses aren't clean, I mean, we got to talk about like logic at this point, and like the outside and the inside are the same product. So what goes in here, it doesn't matter if you put your lips on the glass or not, you're getting it in your drink. And it is a great example of like, here's one minor thing you can change. Next stop, plastic bags. Next stop, Ziplocs. So to me, that was the point of the plastic straw. And it did get politicized, and it was turned into a joke, and everybody had their numbers. It's like 0.01% of all plastic waste is straws. If you could see the volume of what 0.01% of plastic waste actually looked like, you probably wouldn't say that anymore. And but you can't tell people that. It's like there's a mountain of trash, but my straw, or it's not that straw or whatever. And it was supposed to be a simple example from my point of view, and it got blown up into a political conversation. It got blown up into invading people's personal choices, and that just wasn't what it was supposed to be. It's kind of a useless item. It doesn't really have a purpose. I mean, you can stir your drink with a toothpick. It'll be fine. You can stir your drink with your finger. I see people do it all the time.
I just go like this.
Yeah. I mean, there was whatever happened to the shake, And so I see it different than she does. Like I said, her answer is way more articulate. But for me, that's what I've always latched onto. When people say something about it, what happened to plastic straws? Like, you don't need a straw. You'll be fine.
Maybe it would have been better if there just was not a straw replacement, because I think part of it, they're like, I'll say pissed off the plastic straw people is like, you start going to restaurants and now you got paper floating in your cup, and like,
hate the paper straws.
And you're like, this is like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. This straw has like disintegrated into my drink.
And from a restaurant perspective, they're 3-4 times the cost. I mean, they're expensive, So I get it. I really do, from all sides. And I wouldn't even say that not, I don't mean to like completely disagree with you,
No, I'm just saying, like, I
I do
defend the
think
plastic.
What else do you guys disagree on?
I do think
Husband-wife episodes are the best, by the way.
Right? I'm sure. I do think that some people need a straw, and if that's their personal preference, like we talk about that so much at the store. Like, whatever your personal preference is, I will try to accommodate that. And so I just think it made the whole movement kind of dumbed down to this one item, and people were asking really good questions like, well, what about the lid that the straw goes into? And it's valid. It's a valid point. And yes, actually, we should get rid of those too. We really do need to phase out these single-use plastics that are just so prevalent, and until we have better solutions, and I think it's going to be an uphill climb, but it's not impossible to kind of get away from it or to opt out of it if you want to, And then I think that those kinds of like citywide bans, which I think is kind of what we're touching on in a roundabout way, is that what that does is it kind of just forces the community to think of alternatives, and in some situations, especially with environmental issues, policy is really the only way that those things are going to change. And I don't always know how I feel about that. I can see both sides of that coin, and so I think maybe we should just kind of do it on our own, right? Like, wouldn't that be nice? I know that's not always going to work out, especially with these big companies and plastic manufacturers. Like, they want to make plastic and they want you to consume it, and they're going to do everything that they can to ensure that they remain in business, So it's a very big issue that I only deal with like one little aspect of it, and I'm not here I can't solve the world's problems. We can't do that from sitting in these chairs for sure, and so we just have to do what we can do. And what's that Steve Earle quote? Every day on earth is a chance.
Oh man, you killed me.
Anyway.
Every day on earth is a chance to do something. I gotta find it now because it's gonna drive me insane. The other, just with the politicization of it, you live in Gainesville or in the nearby area. You're obviously, again, you've seen these things. People rail against these things because people that they didn't want elected did them. And so at some point in time, we took lead out of paint. It was just a thing that happened. Whether the government did it or not, I don't really know. But at some point in time, we took lead out of paint. It was just gone one day. No one got upset about that. If people had just showed up at McDonald's one day and there's no more plastic straws, we probably wouldn't have the argument. But because the city commission did this, now it's a political issue, and now it's something we want to be upset about.
That's a very interesting perspective.
But I mean, because you think about all the things at some point there was lead in gasoline, and all of a sudden one day, somebody was like, hey, we shouldn't do that anymore. Like, hey, you're right. And now there's no,
So if plastic straws just disappeared, you don't think anybody would have been like, where did the plastic straws go?
I think people would have been mildly inconvenienced and slightly annoyed for a little while, and then they would have gotten quickly adjusted to the fact that there is no plastic straw, and they would have been fine. I mean, the reality is that we're really kind of adaptable creatures. We kind of adapt really quickly to our surroundings, and if you tell someone they can't have it, they want it. But if you just make a situation where it's not available, they don't think about it. There's a Alan Carr wrote a book called The Easy Way Out. It's about quitting smoking. One of the things he said was when you tell somebody you can't have a cigarette, they panic. But no one panics going on an 8-hour flight because they just know it's not possible. And so you kind of using that logic, it does kind of work that way where it's like, if it's just gone, you're going to get over it pretty quickly.
I like it. I think it's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think what, we don't have to talk about straws forever. I don't want this to be there.
And that's the other part of it is we always talk about straws.
I have a feeling that our audience is going to be very grateful that we did and didn't ignore this fact that the plastic straws were like this huge topic for a while, especially given the fact that the zero waste people are here on the show. Like, how did you not bring up plastic straw? Of course, had to. So.
And there's just a lot of forces fighting against it, and and there are a lot of forces fighting for it, and I think. As long as we can, just try to have more circular economies in mind, then the plastic straws at the end of the day, they won't matter.
Yeah.
Because what we want to do, instead of, right now we work in a very linear waste system. We take resources, we make products, and then we discard them. And so what Zero Waste talks about more in depth than particular items, that may or may not be politicized, is kind of creating a community, a society where we take those resources, we either reuse them or repair them, and we keep them in the system, until they're obsolete or until they have to go away, and then we waste them. But only when all of those other options are exhausted do we really actually throw something away. And I think so. That's it can be so mundane and kind of boring to talk about trash and recycling and waste reduction. But I really think on a base level, the zero waste movement is more of like it's like this tiny wave, or this growing wave, really, because the movement, I think, is really, really growing, of all of these really tiny, like, radical acts of rebellion against this super off the rails throwaway consumer society that we've found ourselves in, and like I was saying before, it was kind of under our noses that this happened, and the 1950s was when plastic was invented, maybe 40s, 50s, and even up until, I want to say, like in the 2000s, it was ramping up, but then you can see like the plastic production graph, and it just skyrockets at some point, and it's going to continue to do that. And so when we were growing up, you saw litter, and there were litter campaigns, and there were recycling campaigns, and people were talking about it, and environmentalists have always existed. I think something that a lot of people like to talk about with the plastic bag situation is like the reason why plastic bags became so common in grocery stores and everything was because there was a campaign to save plastic, or to save trees, and because we were cutting down so many trees to make paper bags. So it's kind of like we created this solution that now has turned into this huge problem, and so now we just have to create new solutions, and we really have to maybe even like revert back to we have to maybe even revert back to like some of those practices that our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and before that were using, but in a modern sense. We have all of this technology, and I think we can use it, and so the circular economy will hopefully be something that takes on, and I think normalizing those kinds of actions and those kinds of habits, which is what I do, makes it okay for people to kind of leave these things that they've grown up with. Like, have you ever used anything but a tube of toothpaste? It's just something that we're so accustomed to. Or a plastic toothbrush, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that we've been using for years and years and years, and our whole lives, basically. So anything outside of that feels really uncomfortable and kind of weird. But what's really weird is, to me now, from where I'm sitting, is actually using these things that don't biodegrade. Like they break down into little tiny pieces of plastic. Like that's not necessarily normal. If you really sit down and think about it, we're using a substance just so, like I said, the business of plastic has exploded in even the last decade, and will continue to do so. And so we're using this substance that's made from oil and gas, and it kind of has nowhere to go when we're done with it. And we have been conditioned to believe that that's a really normal behavior. And so I think what Life Unplastic and other refill stores, it's kind of not like this, tree hugging kind of thing. It's really like, what can we do to kind of get back to, in a 2021 sense, but get back to something that's a little bit lighter, a little slower. I think we're all really busy all of the time. We love convenience, and that's not necessarily something that's sustainable for the long term. And I read something recently that was basically like, environmental issues will regulate themselves either by destruction or by design. And that kind of hit me, because we're either going to continue to use and use and use and use all of these resources and just kind of kick the can down the road as far as the waste is concerned and leave that for future generations, or we can be the people that really address the problem now and say enough is enough. Let's get back to something that's a little bit more natural and a little bit, for me, a little bit more normal. So
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, why don't you what's one tip if our listening audience at home has never they're used to their ways.
Yeah.
Well, what's the first thing? What's the first tip? What's the one thing that they could do to kind of to start today?
In
this new venture.
My number one advice actually has nothing to do with my store, would be to compost your food waste. As soon as you can get your food waste out of your trash can, you can more easily assess what else is going into it, and you can kind of take it from there. We have a really great composting program that's ramping up. I think there used to be Gainesville Compost several years back, and they used to actually bike around and pick up your compost. And once they stopped their operations, Beaten Path Compost kind of picked up their where they left off, and shout out to Stefan. I think he's doing the dirty job that really none of us wants to do. He literally plays with people, not plays with it, but you know what I mean. He gets into people's food waste on a daily basis, and I think it's such an easy way to really make an impact. When we throw our food away, it kind of gets locked into landfills, especially where all of our stuff goes to a landfill, and so it gets locked into the landfill. It creates methane gas, and it contributes to greenhouse gases and all of these things. But when you can take it out of your trash can and get it out of the landfill and into a compost bin, whether or not you do that with a service or in your backyard, you can even compost in an apartment. If you have if you want to learn about that, you can do a worm bin or whatever. And so I think that by doing that, you're now creating a resource, right? Because in a few months, it'll be this really rich soil and this really rich compost that you can use to grow food. And so that's what he does. Is he actually has a bucket swap program, which is what we do because we're pretty busy. We don't. We tried to do our own compost and it was largely unsuccessful. We just ended up having it was weird. It was like ash or something. I don't know. We weren't getting the ratios right. You have to get greens and browns is kind of what they refer to it as. And so, but with Beaten Path Compost, you buy a bucket from them, and then once a week he'll swap the bucket with you, and you get a clean one. So it's from from the work that you have to do, you just scrape everything into the bucket, and that's it. That's the whole that's the whole work. And once I was able to start composting, it really makes the rest of it seem pretty easy. I guess the second thing that I would say is it's not going to happen overnight. It's really a journey, or I guess it's not like a sprint. It's going to be one thing here, one thing there. I don't want to interrupt people's you feel like you have to change overnight, because that's just not going to happen. And it can be overwhelming to kind of look around and just realize all of the little things that you have that you can't recycle or whatever the case may be. And so if you just take it kind of one thing at a time, then it really becomes a lot more doable, I think. So
I also have a different perspective, simply based on the fact that the zero waste movement, generally speaking, what she does and who comes into the shop is predominantly female. The whole idea.
We are seeing a lot more men.
You are seeing recently. A lot more, but for the most part, the predominant idea is that it's a very female-driven thing. Men, they feel like it's almost encroaching their masculinity or whatever it is. And she had to bring stuff home, try it. And so for me, talking specifically to the men in the audience, try it. Give some stuff a shot. I know it's not really evident right now, but I have the best razor I've ever had. I have the best soap that I have ever had.
For everybody's listening, he's got this very nice beard right now.
But it's I haven't shaved in a couple of days, but I have these products are incredible.
Yeah.
And it kind of blows me away all the time when I think about it. They're not more expensive, and yeah, I mean, you could and play the lazy thing. Like, you don't take the trash out as often if you get a compost bucket. It's silly, but like all of these things we've started to notice, we really have. And if you pay attention to what you're doing, you're gonna find a lot of things that just don't really have a purpose.
Yeah.
2 things I would like to add is the Steve Earle quote was, "Every day on earth is a chance to get it right." And the other thing was, you were talking about anti-littering campaigns, and I wanted to jump in, but I didn't want to interrupt you. And she told me this one day, and it blew me away, so I want to share it. Don't mess with Texas. Everybody's heard "Don't mess with Texas." That was an anti-littering campaign. And that's kind of become Texas's slogan. And I always thought that was really interesting, that that's what that was and where it came from.
Interesting.
So.
Well, cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Very interesting. Where could our audience connect with you? I mean, obviously, tell them the address of the store and the phone number of the store and the website, that kind of stuff.
Sure. The website is lifeunplastic.com, and you can connect with us on Instagram. It's unplastic.gnv. And on Facebook, it's just Life Unplastic. The phone number is 352-225-3116. We're located in Thornbrook, which is kind of middle Gainesville. If you know where Fresh Market is, we're right behind that. Or there's a Gainesville Health and Fitness Women's Center in Thornbrook, so we kind of share space with them. Yeah, that's where we are.
Awesome.
And that's how you can connect with us.
And if you want to, for good social media, go to follow Lucy's and
for the
and Life
restaurant.
Unplastic.
Yeah.
If you
but
would
for
like
not so good,
if you would like musical tips and on things you should listen to every day, you should follow Headwaters in High Spring. Because I post a lot. I post my songs a lot. The stuff I'm listening to that day. Because music, you asked what's your favorite song, I'm like, which is a weird question for me to answer because I'm a very musically oriented guy. And so normally we could do an entire podcast on my 10 favorite songs.
Yeah.
No problem.
That's the thing, especially, and when you have different businesses,
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably get focus an hour on each one.
Gosh, yeah.
It's very different approaches, and I'm learning it, and I've learned a lot from my wife, and she has really gotten through to a lot of people, and she's gotten a lot of attention. She's done very well with it because she's
I'm
really
always
good
here
at
to
social
help,
media.
and like I said, it's nothing about where we kind of sit from consumption mindset. Really is the fault of the consumer. I think we need to look up the production chain and try to make changes there. But in the meantime, little changes here and there. Try a new product. Try to just have the mindset of when you walk into a store that maybe impulse buys might contribute to this overall as a consumption problem, and just try to be mindful. It's a conscious consumerism is kind of what we're doing these days.
Great.
So yeah.
Well, keep it up, and I know don't get discouraged. Don't let that uphill battle discourage you in any way. Keep doing great work. So, and I'm so glad that you guys came on our show.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
And thank you so much to you guys, the ones out there listening. Appreciate you guys so much. And definitely got to give a shout out to James Leitner for producing the show, making us look so good with this lighting, yo. And podcast fam, if you're driving and didn't have a chance to write down the information of the incredible sponsors that make this show possible, don't worry. You can find them all at WHOAGNV.com/sponsors, or simply click those links in the show notes of this episode. And special love this episode to our friends at the GNV Commercial Advisors at Colliers, Gainesville. Have you noticed those blue Collier signs all over Gainesville? Those are the signs of progress. The GNV Commercial Advisory Team of Colliers, Gainesville is the region's top commercial real estate team. When you need to buy or sell commercial land or buildings, find a new space for your business, or lease out a property you own, turn to the GNV Commercial Advisory Team. They close more than 60 deals a year. Shouldn't yours be one of them? Hell yeah. Check out all of their services at colliers.com/Gainesville. And when you do, be sure to say, I heard you on the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go,
Whoa.
whoa. We will see you later. Bye.